Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we're diving into the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know you guys have sent in a ton of great excerpts,
Yeah.
and we're excited to kind of try and figure out how this ancient wisdom applies to life today.
It really does. The Bhagavad Gita offers these timeless insights into things like duty and purpose,
Right.
even the nature of reality itself.
Yeah.
It's really incredible how relevant it still is.
It's almost like we're having a conversation with like a really wise friend,
Yeah.
who's seen it all and can give us advice. And it unfolds, right, as this dialogue between Prince Arjuna, who is
Uh-huh.
facing this crazy moral crisis on a battlefield,
Yeah.
and his charioteer, Krishna, who, surprise, surprise, is like a divine incarnation.
Right, yeah. And that setting, I think, really amplifies, Arjuna's struggles, right? Imagine having to fight against your own family. Talk about a rough family reunion, right? But this is where the Gita's teachings become so powerful. How do we act with integrity when we're faced with
Right.
these massive challenges in our lives?
I think one of the central concepts, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but the Gita explores is dharma.
Right.
I've always found that term fascinating, but I also find it a bit tricky to really grasp.
Yeah, dharma is often translated as like duty or purpose, but it's so much more nuanced than just those two
Oh,
words.
it is, yeah.
It's about aligning your actions with your own inherent nature
Okay.
and the cosmic order. It's like uncovering your unique blueprint in this grand scheme of things.
So it's not just about like fulfilling obligations, but actually like understanding your potential and acting in a way that's true to yourself.
Yeah.
So like I'm good at writing, terrible at math. Maybe my dharma isn't to be an accountant.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The Gita really emphasizes finding that alignment, even if it's not perfect. Chapter 18 suggests it's actually better to follow your own dharma imperfectly
Oh, okay.
than to try and imitate someone else's path perfectly.
So stay in your lane, even if it's messy.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's reassuring, especially in a world where we're always comparing ourselves to other people.
Oh, yeah. Comparison can lead us so far astray from our true dharma.
Right.
Chapter 3 even says that it's better to die fulfilling your own duty
Wow.
than to succeed in somebody else's. That's a powerful statement. It's talking about the dangers of chasing that external validation that we talked about earlier.
That makes me think about like all the times where I felt pressured to follow a path that wasn't really mine, whether it was a career or a relationship or even just like a hobby.
Right.
What do you think are the dangers the Gita's kind of hinting at here?
It suggests that, straying from our dharma, it can lead to like inner turmoil and a sense of, being misaligned with who we truly are. Chapter 16 talks about this. It highlights the people that are focused on material gain through strict rituals, as opposed to those that are acting with a selfless sacrifice for spiritual growth.
Okay.
It's not about the outer actions, but those inner motivations that really define what true dharma is.
So it's like going through the motions without like a real connection to the deeper meaning behind it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
finding and following our dharma
Yeah.
requires us to be really self-aware, huh?
Yeah.
And maybe even like have the courage to go against what society might be expecting us to do.
Absolutely. Recognizing your dharma is a journey of self-discovery, and the Gita is providing us with the tools to navigate that journey. It encourages us to look inward, understand our unique strengths, our weaknesses, and then act in a way that is truly aligned with our truest selves.
So that's a powerful framework then for even making decisions.
Yes.
Not just based on what looks good on the outside, but what feels authentic on the inside.
Yes, exactly.
And speaking of inner alignment, the Gita also talks about detachment, right?
Okay.
But this seems like a completely different concept. Help me out here.
Detachment is definitely another core principle in the Gita. And it may seem contradictory to Dharma, which is all about, acting in the world. But think of it this way. Detachment isn't about withdrawing from action, but it's about shifting our focus
Okay.
from the outcome to the process itself.
So it's like a surgeon performing, like a supercritical surgery, right?
Yeah.
They're focused on doing their absolute best in that moment without getting all caught up in the anxieties about whether the patient will live or die.
Exactly. They still care deeply about the outcome.
Yeah.
But they understand that fixating on it isn't going to improve their performance. Chapter 6 even suggests that the most connected yogi is the one who actually remembers Krishna while performing their actions.
Oh, wow.
It's about bringing a sense of awareness and devotion to everything that we do.
So like even in the midst of intense action, there's this sense of inner stillness.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I feel like our modern world could really, really benefit from this idea of detachment. We're constantly bombarded with this pressure to achieve, to produce results, and it can be so stressful.
The Gita acknowledges that human tendency, right, to get really caught up in results. Yeah. And it warns against it.
Yeah.
Chapter 14 describes actions fueled by ego and desire, as these passionate actions,
Right.
which ironically lead to more suffering in the long run.
Yeah.
It's like that familiar feeling of chasing after something that we think will make us happy,
Right.
only to find that it doesn't deliver.
It doesn't, yeah. It's almost like the Gita was like written for the modern age, right?
I know.
We're all so caught up in the hustle and the bustle and
Yeah.
constantly seeking validation from the outside, and it can leave us feeling really empty.
Right.
How do we even begin to cultivate this sense of detachment in a world that's constantly pulling us in the opposite direction?
I think it starts with understanding the difference between action and inaction. The Gita in chapter 4 talks about how even intelligent people can get confused about what constitutes true action. It's not about, outward busyness,
Right.
but about aligning those actions with our dharma and performing them with that detached mindset.
So it's subtle, but it's such a crucial distinction.
It is. It is.
And the Gita also highlights the role of intention, right?
It does.
Like chapter 16 emphasizes this contrast between actions that are motivated by selfish gain versus actions that are performed in service to something greater than ourselves. It's not just what we do, it's why we're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Our intentions really matter. Actions driven by ego and desire, they create more karma, which ultimately leads to more suffering. The Gita suggests that aligning our actions with our dharma, performing them with a detached mindset, can actually lead to liberation from this cycle of suffering. But it's not easy. It's definitely a practice. It's a journey.
It is, yeah. And it seems like cultivating detachment is closely tied to this idea of inner peace, which is where the concept of self-realization comes in, right?
Yes.
Can you illuminate this for us a little bit?
Sure. Self-realization is really about experiencing your true nature, going beyond just intellectual knowledge to an inner awakening. It's about recognizing that we are more than just our physical bodies, our thoughts, and our emotions. And the Gita suggests that our true essence is actually inherently connected to the divine.
So it's about connecting to something bigger than ourselves then.
Yeah,
That sounds so profound, but it also sounds a bit abstract.
I know. Chapter 7 suggests that knowing Krishna is complete knowledge because he's the source of everything.
Okay.
It's a challenging concept to grasp, but it's pointing to this interconnection of all things.
My mind's starting to bend a little bit here.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. If detachment is about letting go of outcomes and dharma is about acting in the world, how does self-realization fit into all of this? It seems like they could be pulling us in kind of different directions.
That's a great question, and one that we will continue to explore. But the key is understanding that these concepts aren't actually separate.
Okay.
They're intertwined. Self-realization or understanding our true nature actually empowers us to act with greater clarity and detachment. It's like gaining a brand new perspective,
Hmm.
a deeper understanding of our place in this grand scheme of things.
So rather than being contradictory, they actually support each other.
Yeah, they do.
That makes sense. It's like having a strong foundation allows us to build higher and more freely.
That's a beautiful analogy. And the Gita is full of these metaphors and stories that help us grasp these profound concepts. One of my favorites is the analogy of the sky. In chapter 13, it describes the self as being like the sky, unaffected by the storms and the clouds that pass through it. And this is what the Gita calls Brahman vision, the ability to see our true nature as something beyond these ever-changing phenomena of the world.
So even when our lives feel totally chaotic, there's a part of us that remains untouched, peaceful.
Yeah.
That's a really comforting thought.
And it's a powerful realization. By cultivating that Brahman vision, we can experience a sense of peace and equanimity, even amidst the ups and downs of life. And it's that understanding of our true nature that empowers us to act with greater clarity, purpose, and detachment.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these seemingly separate concepts, dharma, detachment, and self-realization, actually weave together to form this tapestry of profound wisdom.
They do.
But we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. Let's take a breath and recap before we move on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so we started by talking about dharma as our unique path, in this cosmic order,
Right.
encouraging us to act in a way that's truly aligned with our true selves. We talked about detachment as a
Hmm.
means of liberating ourselves from these anxieties of outcome attachment, emphasizing the importance of performing our actions with awareness and devotion.
Yes.
And finally, we touched on this concept of self-realization as like the ultimate goal.
Yes.
There we awaken to our true nature as spiritual beings that are connected to the divine.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot to digest. But I'm already feeling the impact of these teachings. I'm really eager to delve deeper in our next segment.
Me too. Me too.
Right.
It's fascinating how the Gita, weaves together all this practical advice with these really profound concepts. It's not just these lofty philosophies. It's also about, like, how to live a better life today, right?
That's what I like about it. It's not asking us to, like, escape from the world,
Right.
but to actually engage with it, but just in a more conscious and meaningful way. And it's
Mhm.
encouraging to hear that. Like, even intelligent people struggle with figuring out what true action is, as the Gita describes it.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to fall into that trap of like busyness, thinking that doing more means you are more.
Right.
But the Gita, it challenges us to go a little bit deeper, to examine our motivations and align our actions with our dharma.
Like you were saying before, it's not just about what we're doing, but
Yeah.
it's the why behind it.
Exactly.
And this idea of aligning our actions with our dharma while practicing detachment, it feels like walking a tightrope.
It is.
How do we reconcile being engaged in the world with this sense of not being attached to the outcomes?
Well, that's where the practice comes in. Chapter 6, it delves into these various yogic techniques, right, for training the mind. Things like meditation or breath control. The breath, for example, is a powerful tool for bridging that gap between our inner and outer worlds. By consciously regulating our breath, we can calm our nervous system, create a sense of inner stillness, even when there's chaos all around us.
It's like having a built-in reset button or something. And one of the excerpts that you sent in actually mentioned focusing on the breath as a way to control the mind,
Right.
trying to like tame my mind feels like herding cats sometimes. Maybe this breathwork stuff can actually help with it.
The Gita definitely recognizes that the mind is restless, difficult to control, but it offers these practical techniques to help us, find that inner balance. And remember, the yogis of old, they didn't live in these quiet, distraction-free environments,
Right.
They were surrounded by chaos just like us.
Right. So detachment isn't about escaping to like a mountaintop somewhere. It's about cultivating this inner state of peace that we can bring with us into the world. But how does that translate to our everyday relationships? It seems like being detached could make us like less caring or less emotionally available to the people in our lives.
That's a really common misconception. Detachment doesn't mean suppressing our emotions or disconnecting from the people that we care about.
Yeah.
It's more about shifting our focus, from clinging to specific outcomes to being fully present in each moment,
Okay.
allowing our relationships to unfold naturally without trying to control them.
So it's more about acceptance and letting go of expectations then.
Yeah, I think so.
It makes me think about how often I get frustrated when people don't meet my expectations. Maybe a little more detachment in my relationships could actually help with that.
Well, the Gita encourages us to see the divine in everyone, to approach our interactions with a sense of compassion and understanding rather than, judgment or attachment to specific outcomes. And, this ties back into that concept of dharma. Chapter 18 emphasizes the importance of following our own prescribed duty rather than trying to imitate others.
Right.
So if we apply that to relationships, it could mean recognizing that each person has their own unique dharma, their own path to follow.
Right. That's a really helpful perspective. It's like recognizing that we can't force people to fit into our own molds,
Right.
We need to allow them the space to be who they are, to express their own unique dharma. And that requires like a certain level of trust, right?
Absolutely.
Trusting that things will unfold as they're meant to, even if it's not according to our plans.
Exactly. Trust is a key element of detachment, and it's closely related to the concept of surrender. The Gita encourages us to surrender to the divine will, to trust in the unfolding of life, even when we don't understand it.
That sounds really liberating, but also a little bit scary. Like, what if surrendering to the divine will means that things don't go the way that I want them to go?
The Gita reminds us that our limited human perspective, we can't grasp the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Chapter 2, it emphasizes the importance of being undisturbed by happiness or distress.
Oh, wow.
It suggests that true liberation comes from transcending that duality of these emotional states. It encourages us to trust that even those difficult experiences, they're part of a larger plan, a cosmic dance that we can't fully comprehend.
So it's about seeing like the challenges and the joys as part of the same tapestry, like essential threads in the fabric of our lives.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to this idea of self-realization. If detachment allows us to act without being attached to outcomes, and Dharma guides us to act in alignment with our purpose, where does like understanding our true nature fit into all of this? Does it make those other two like easier in a way?
Self-realization isn't a separate destination. It's this ongoing journey that informs and empowers our actions. It's about waking up to who we truly are, recognizing our connection to the divine, and then, expressing that divinity in our daily lives.
It's like realizing that we've had the keys to the kingdom all along, but we just didn't know it.
Right.
So how does this understanding of our true nature actually help us like act with more detachment and live in alignment with our Dharma?
Imagine a wave crashing on the shore.
Okay.
The wave might seem like this separate entity, but in reality, it's just a manifestation of the ocean. Similarly, we might feel like these separate individuals, but in essence, we're expressions of that divine consciousness, just like the wave is an expression of the ocean.
So we're all interconnected.
Yes.
All part of the same source.
There they are.
That's a mind-blowing concept, but it also like feels really hopeful.
It is.
If we're all connected, then maybe compassion and understanding aren't just like nice ideas, but they're actually essential for our collective well-being.
I think you're right. Exactly. And, the Gita suggests that understanding this interconnectedness, it's the key to true liberation. Chapter 7 highlights that knowing Krishna is complete knowledge because he's the source of everything.
Okay.
And recognizing this interconnectedness, it helps us to see beyond that illusion of separateness and to act with greater compassion, understanding, and detachment.
It's like realizing that we're all in the same boat, so we might as well learn to like row together.
Right.
And this concept of interconnectedness seems like especially relevant in our modern world, which is facing so many complex challenges right now.
It is. The Gita offers this timeless wisdom for navigating all of these challenges. It encourages us to act with clarity and purpose and detachment, knowing that we are all part of something so much greater than ourselves.
I'm feeling inspired, but before we get too carried away, let's recap what we've explored in this part of our deep dive.
Sure.
Okay, so we talked about the practical applications of detachment, particularly in our relationships and in navigating the challenges of everyday life.
Yeah.
We explored the relationship between Dharma, detachment, and self-realization, highlighting how like understanding our true nature empowers us to act with more clarity and purpose.
Right.
And then finally, we touched on this profound concept of interconnectedness, emphasizing how important compassion and understanding are in our interactions with the world.
Yes. It's been a really rich and insightful conversation.
It has.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where our final segment takes us. But before we dive in, I'd love to hear from our listeners. What resonates most with you about these concepts? All right, so deep divers, we've explored Dharma, we've talked about detachment, we've even touched on this idea of self-realization.
Yeah.
All these, powerful concepts from the Bhagavad Gita. But I think a lot of folks listening might be wondering how to actually like bring this ancient wisdom into their modern lives.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And like any journey, it starts with that first step. And, the Gita really emphasizes practice, not perfection.
So we don't have to become like meditating hermits or something to benefit from these teachings?
No, not at all. The beauty of the Gita is it's really practical.
Okay.
It offers this guidance for living a more conscious and fulfilling life, no matter what your circumstances are. And one of the first steps, I think, is, cultivating self-awareness, understanding our own nature, recognizing our own strengths and our weaknesses.
This makes me think back to like our discussion about Dharma. The Gita encourages us to follow our own path, even if it's imperfect.
Right.
Rather than trying to, imitate others. But how do we actually figure out what our Dharma is? That seems like a really daunting task.
Well, it is a process of inner exploration, and the Gita does offer a lot of tools to help us do that. Chapter 18 talks about seeking knowledge from, the right sources,
Mm,
from those that are truly wise and enlightened.
okay.
So this could mean, finding a spiritual teacher, studying sacred texts, or even just observing the world around you with a discerning eye.
So it's about being a student of life then.
Hmm.
Paying attention to what resonates with us, what sparks our curiosity and our passion. It's like those moments when something just clicks and you think like, yes, this feels right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Those moments can be those little glimpses of our dharma unfolding, and the Gita reminds us that we're not alone on this journey. It encourages us to seek out, a qualified teacher,
Right.
a guru who can guide us on that path.
It's like having a spiritual mentor or something.
Hmm.
Someone who's walked the path before us and can offer us some guidance and support. And
Yeah.
speaking of support, I'm curious about this idea of bhakti yoga, this path of devotion. How does that fit into the overall picture?
Well, bhakti yoga is a beautiful and powerful path to self-realization, and it is a central theme in the Gita.
It is.
It's about cultivating a loving relationship with the divine, with Krishna.
Okay.
And this devotion can express itself in so many ways,
Yeah.
through chanting, prayer, selfless service, or simply by approaching every moment with an open and grateful heart.
That sounds really accessible. It's not about like adhering to strict rituals or dogma, but about cultivating this sense of love and reverence in our hearts. It makes me think about those moments when I feel a deep sense of awe and wonder,
Yeah.
like looking at a sunset or listening to music or connecting with a loved one. It's like those moments are these little glimpses of that divine connection.
Exactly. Bhakti yoga is about recognizing that divine spark within ourselves and in everything around us, and this recognition can be incredibly transformative.
It can, yeah.
It can shift our perspective, soften our hearts, inspire us to act with more compassion and kindness.
I can see how that would be a really powerful antidote to like all the negativity and the division that we see in the world
Oh,
today.
yeah, absolutely.
Like cultivating that inner connection can actually radiate outwards and create this ripple effect of positivity.
It can. And the Gita reminds us that this inner transformation isn't just for our own benefit, It's for the benefit of all beings.
Wow.
It's about realizing that interconnectedness and acting in a way that contributes to the well-being of the whole.
So it's not about escaping the world. It's about engaging with it from a place of love and understanding. And it seems like the Gita offers this roadmap for navigating the complexities of modern life, from finding our purpose to cultivating inner peace to creating a more just and compassionate world.
It really does. It's a timeless guide for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life. And the beauty is it's always there for us, waiting to be explored, waiting to be discovered.
I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up our deep dive into the Bhagavad Gita. It's been a really enriching journey, and I hope our listeners have gained some valuable insights along the way.
I know, I've enjoyed exploring these teachings with you.
I have too.
And I encourage everyone to continue exploring the Gita's wisdom on their own. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
It does. And as we conclude, we want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. Keep diving deep. Keep those hearts and minds open. And until next time, keep seeking those nuggets of wisdom that can transform our lives and our world.